Hello beer tubers and welcome to another beer review with me, Peter, the master of hoppage. Today checking out my first ever beer from Holy Mountain. They're based in Seattle, Washington, and it's a brewery that's quite well known for Midnight Still and what's it called? The one with the hand on the label. I can't remember. Hype Barley Wine. And just in general, like very well made barrel aged beer and in general just well made beers. But we're not checking out something crazy hype from them as our first beer, or as my first beer. We're checking out a dark ale, or I guess a dark mild, judging by the ABV. So this is their black beer. And this was on Tavour, and I was like, Holy Mountain, and it's a dark ale. Let's get it. Like I've gotten to a point now, like with these classic styles, or just styles you don't see too much anymore. Like I'd rather check that out than just another hazy, or another whatever pastry, sour or stout. So I think it's really fun to dive into beers like this. So this is 4.5%, and dark ales and dark milds and whatnot. It's not something I've drunk loads of in recent years because they're incredibly rare and hard to come by. Unless you go to like the UK, of course, it's much more easy to come by. But I think once in a while I've seen it locally at our cask bar here in Aalborg in Denmark, the Wharf. But I have some info on the beer here, so I think they've done it before, and they say here that it's a straightforward dark ale brewed with Maris Otter, pale ale malt, chocolate malt, crystal malt, and a generous proportion of roasted and flaked barley, and it's hopped with Magnum and East Kent Goldings. So really classic, but it looks really dark. I mean, it looks like a stout, but let's check it out. So pour is a pitch black color, and again, yeah, this looks very dark. It's definitely a dark ale. It does have some brown tones to it. So that's usually what you'd expect from something like a dark mild. And I think like a dark mild, if that is pretty much like, I know some people say, oh, it's a classic dark ale. There are breweries doing beers like this that they also call them dark ales and not dark milds. And like beer styles can be very confusing sometimes because they can bleed into each other and whatnot. But this one is 4.5%. That's usually the max range for like a dark mild. And when I think of a dark ale or dark mild or something like that, I think of a beer kind of like this, maybe less black and not really roasty as a stout, but like just have a touch of like chocolatey, roasty characters. But it, to me, really does look like a stout. Just, it's really black, but it's also black beer. It looks awesome. Also love the font on here. I think it says black beer in death metal or death or black metal font on the back, which is awesome. So yeah, looks great. Tan, blackish looking head. Let's check out the aroma on Holy Mountain's black beer. I think a lot of brewers would brew this and call it a stout, just smelling the aroma. There's loads of roasted barley, but there's definitely like a marmalade-y kind of yeast character to it. But it might be on the edge of what you need in a stout. But I think some classic beers and some brewers, they brew something like this and just call it maybe like an English stout or something like that. Smells very full and very forward on the aroma for such a low strength beer. I'm definitely also smelling like there's almost like a fluffy, grainy maltiness to it. I think that might be the flake barley. I think more fluffy maltiness. I could be thinking of wheat really when I smell it. There's toasty notes, toasted nuts, coffee, lots of coffee actually, loads of nutty coffee really. Actually, the malt and everything really shine, whereas the yeast is a bit second fiddle, and it's also not like it's not got diacetyl, which is something you often find in some of the classic stuff. But yeah, it smells really nice. There's even a hint of licorice. Quite forward on the aroma for such a low strength beer. That's pretty impressive. Yeah, there's some burnt maltiness, burnt roasty. That smells really good. Let's try it, guys. Cheers. I still think some brewers would call that a stout, but I do understand why they call it a dark ale, because it doesn't have any like really hard roast profile. It's definitely there. And it's also not that bitter. So I do see why they decided to call it a dark ale instead of a stout. But it to me, it kind of drinks like a classic British stout. Actually, now in the aftertaste, I'm getting a lot of roasted malt. More so than anything. Toasty and nutty. It has some of that kind of stewed fruity yeast character. It's not a lot. It's actually not that much in terms of yeast character. Like some of the classics. I think, classic English beers in general, they have loads of yeast character, especially if you get it on cask. And this is like, it's not clean. There's definitely esters going on, but it's not as much as in some classic English variants. And like, this is it's quite heavily charry on the aftertaste. There's loads of flavor for the ABV, but I'd imagine like if you put stout on this, people would critique it, and that could be part of the reason why they decided to call it dark ale, like because in a classic sense, this does have some of the flavor profiles you'd look for in a stout, in a classic kind of English stout, because it's roasty, it's charry, it's estery, and I think that might be why. Like, I don't know how it is in the States. So you guys watching from the States, maybe you can tell me. But I think a lot of people don't like it when stouts are dark fruity and estery and very English. They want the big fudge bombs and like they want like the pastry stuff. They don't want something that is like that old school. So that could be why they've called it a dark ale instead of a stout. It's really good though. It's really well made, really nutty. I'm getting lots of toasted hazelnut as well. A little bit of a brown breadiness too. And then it's like this stewed fruitiness. Darker fruits and wine gums, but it's light. So I'm guessing they also didn't want to go all in on that maybe. Like that's like some of the crazy, some again classic examples can go overboard on that. Especially something that's Old Peculiar is, I think they also categorize that as a dark ale, actually, now that I think of it. Or do they categorize it as an old ale? I can't remember. But that has like this crazy, insane, stewed, marmalade-y, estery fruitiness. Almost like stewed blackcurrants or something like that. This is much more restrained in terms of that. But really toasty, really charry, ashy on the back end. Slightly acidic without being too much. I would have loved a bit more ester profile. And to be honest, just because it says dark ale and I think classic British stuff, I actually wouldn't mind if this had just a slight hint of diacetyl. It's so weird. Like, I've always been off-put by diacetyl, but in British beers, sometimes a small amount can offer a little bit of complexity that's actually kind of nice. At least in my mind, some of the classic stuff. I think when we went to the UK with work and we drank some of these bitters that just had that slight whiff of diacetyl, it was actually quite nice. When it was like in real low thresholds, it doesn't have to be crazy butter bombs, but that paired with those like really jammy stewed esters and everything was really nice. That being said, this is a really, really nice beer. If you want to call it a stout, call it a stout, English stout. If you want to call it dark ale, call it dark ale. It packs so much flavor for 4.5%, and it's so fluffy and coating on the mouth, yet dry, making you go in for another sip. I've said it before, I'm usually not a big fan of these darker type strong beer, or darker beers, stouts, porters, whatever, when they get really low in ABV, because I feel like they get thin, and they often get like more harsh, and you don't have as much sweetness to back it up. But this one is really well balanced and everything. Like there is a touch of sweetness. It's not a lot, but there's just a touch to help balance all that charry roast and everything. It's very nice. It's very good. I think I'm gonna go straight 90. It's a really good beer. Like I will have no problem downing this can. I could definitely drink another. Very good stuff. Almost like a hint of ashy smoke to it actually as well. So yeah, first foray into Holy Mountain, quite a different beer, but a really good one of that. So yeah, black beer, there you go. If you guys had a chance to try this one, let me know what you thought of it. And if you guys want to try British beers after trying this, You really should, and especially trying to see if you can get. I don't know if it's a thing in the States, but try to get cask, because a lot of the British really like old school British beers really shine on cask. At least in terms of like all that stuff I talked about with the yeast ester and diacetyl. But yeah, this is nice stuff. So yeah, if you guys had it, let me know what you thought of it. As always, remember to comment, subscribe, check out the Facebook fan page and Twitter and Instagram. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Ring the bell for future notifications about videos. And I'm going to say cheers. And see you guys in the beer review.